Matheus Cunha wants to join Manchester United and talks are advancing fast. David Ornstein shuts down the Osimhen rumours but reveals Liam Delap is the number one striker target. United now have a clear plan and Champions League football won't change their transfer list. There's also a surprise deal agreed for Enzo Kana-Biyik, links to Álex Baena and a shock move for a Manchester City talent. Welcome to the channel. I'm Jamie. This is all the latest Manchester United news and transfer news. Smash a like on the video and let's jump straight into it. So let's kick off with the Victor Osimhen story. So David Ornstein did an interview last night on NBC where he was talking about transfers. He spoke specifically around, Matheus Cunha and the deals that United are looking to line up. But regarding Victor Osimhen, he had the following to say: if Manchester United are to look at others, I'm assured it will not be Victor Osimhen. Despite reports you might be reading, he is not on the agenda for Manchester United. So David Ornstein coming out last night and kind of dismissing the Victor Osimhen to Manchester United links, and effectively saying that he's not on the agenda for Manchester United, which is a little bit of a blow. I'm sure some of you will be disappointed by that news, me included. Actually, I felt Osimhen would be the right kind of target. The problem with Osimhen's always been, and I've always maintained this as well, it's the salary demands. You've got to remember that Chelsea walked away from that deal and didn't get a deal done last summer for Victor Osimhen because of the salary, and that was Chelsea. Chelsea did not want to pay Victor Osimhen's salary demands. We're in a position where we want to try and reduce our wage budget. So I've never kind of felt that we would be in the position where we want to give out £350,000 a week contracts. The Muppeteers were saying yesterday in the video I bought you that, there has to be some kind of compromise either on the transfer fee or on the salary demands. And clearly, maybe there is no compromise. So they're United are like, yeah, we're not going to pursue that deal anymore. And David Ornstein, who's, the most credible journalist around, in my opinion, saying that despite the reports you're reading, Osimhen is not on the agenda for Manchester United. So even if we don't get our top target, which he did also mention in his piece, which in his interview, which I'll go through in a second, Victor Osimhen, a no-go to Manchester United. Give us your thoughts on that in the comments. I know that's going to disappoint some of you. Some of you will not be bothered by it. Some of you have been correct in the comments as well beforehand, saying around the kind of stories regarding Victor Osimhen as well. So it does look like that's a deal. I do think we've spoken to Osimhen. I think he's definitely been a player of interest. There's too much smoke for there to have not been any fire. Whether that interest was blown out of proportion or total BS. We had the reports the other day from the kind of Turkish outlets where I did say to take with a big fat pinch of salt, and I want to see way more credibility than those to believe those kind of stories regarding Victor Osimhen, and you don't get more credible than David Ornstein, who's suggesting that this is a no-go, and whether there just wasn't a compromise on the salary or the kind of fee. Well, it would be mainly the salary, I think, and obviously there's not been a compromise. We're not going to pursue the deal, and then we're just gonna move on. As disappointed as some of you might find that, personally, I'm a little bit disappointed in that as well, because I think it's a good opportunity to get one of the best strikers around at the moment, but at what cost? And clearly a cost that United don't want to pay. That's what I kind of think, reading between the lines on that one. Now, Ben Jacobs also said that Saudi are leading the race for Victor Osimhen, who wanted to move to Al Hilal last summer. Reports from Turkey about an agreement on terms with Manchester United are false. Top striker priority for United remains Liam Delap, and hope Matheus Cunha will arrive as a 10. Now, that came from Ben Jacobs. Ben Jacobs I always think like hit and miss, but he's fairly decent when it comes to like Saudi moves and deals and stuff like that as well. So, and again, confirming that the stories from the Turkish media kind of reports the other day or over the last couple of days, are false. And again, I did say to take it with a big fat pinch of salt, because we'd want way more credibility than those regarding, Victor Osimhen's a massive deal, right? You think of the Matheus Cunha news, and we'll go through updates on that in a second. You look at all the names that are kind of linking Matheus Cunha to United, right? You've got Ornstein, Romano, Laurie Whitwell, Rob Dawson, Sky Cave, Melissa Reddy, Ben Jacobs. Do you know what I mean? All the kind of top hitters. There's probably loads that I've missed out on as well, but all of the kind of credibility regarding the Matheus Cunha. And yet with Osimhen, who in my opinion would be a bigger deal, none of those people are kind of reporting it. It's all the kind of, Italian outlets, Turkish outlets and stuff, which obviously bring you, because the news is the news, right? And that's what we kind of discuss on here, and I show you where it's coming from. I share my thoughts on whether I think it's credible or not. And there was none of that with Victor Osimhen. So, but I do think we've been looking at him. I think we've been speaking to him as well, maybe his agent, and maybe he's like, yeah, we want, 400 grand a week. Was the report £12.8 million net? One of the nonsense stories the other day, which would have worked out about 450 grand a week for United to pay for him. We're not going to go anywhere near that sort of salary. Chelsea walked away from Osimhen last summer because of the salary demands as well. So yeah, it's one of these. It is disappointing, but we're just going to have to move on. It will come out in the wash what potentially happened or didn't happen with that deal, because Romano has said that we have spoken to Osimhen as well. So there is, I think, a little bit of truth in the links, but maybe not as advanced as what was being led to, or what was being put out there by certain outlets. But give us your thoughts on Osimhen in the comments. Be interesting to hear your opinion regarding that. Now, Fabrizio Romano, regarding Delap and Cunha, has the following to say. The negotiations for Cunha are ongoing on player side. Discussions are going well. United are optimistic. Liam Delap is a big opportunity. They have already made contact with his agent to be informed on his release clause, £30 million. So Romano suggesting that United seeing Liam Delap as a big opportunity and have made contact with his agents regarding and obviously discussed the kind of contract situation with the release clause as well. David Ornstein and the following to say, Manchester United's priority this summer is attack. Matheus Cunha is the main focus for the number 10 position, and Liam Delap is the top striker target. The finances are in place for United to do the deals they want to. They will not depend on European football or sales. So that's a kind of big takeaway as well that I was, when I was watching the interviews and reading the kind of, the statements and stuff as well regarding David Ornstein, where he was saying that United have the budget available to go and get those deals done, and the priority is the attack. So reading between the lines, I think United have said, right, okay, well we've allocate, and the Muppets were saying something similar as well, where the priority position to strengthen this summer for United is the attack. And if they've got the budget to go and get Cunha and Delap, which clearly they have because they're the two players that we're, heavily invested in and more linked by the credible kind of sources, then they're just going to go and do that. And then, and that's irrelevant of whether we get Champions League, sales or anything. So that's our summer budget, I think, is going to go towards Delap and Cunha. What our summer budget actually is, nobody kind of knows yet, whether we'll have more to go out for other priorities. But it's interesting that David Ornstein was saying that it will not depend on sales of European football. So we're going to go and get those deals done. That's why you're getting all these stories around wanting to get the deals done early and stuff, is because clearly we have the budget, or we feel we've got the budget available to go and do that before, the next financial kind of football year, which is in July. And we're just going to go and do what we can with the budget, unrelated to Champions League and stuff, which is really interesting, because then if obviously the reports are that if we do get Champions League, then we've got an increased budget, and the reports were kind of saying, well, if we get an increased budget, maybe we could stretch that budget and go for like an upgrade on the players that we're looking for. But maybe United are looking at it and saying, no, we want these players anyway, so we're going to go get it. If we get money from Champions League and sales, we're actually just going to get players in other positions. So rather than, so what I'm saying very badly, I think, is Delap's £30 million, right? Or thereabouts. Let's just say hypothetically it's £30 million because that's his release clause, right? So if we get Champions League football, instead of then spending an extra 20 million or 30 million with the salary and stuff like that as well to go and get Victor Osimhen, they'd rather spend that extra 20, 30 million on a goalkeeper or a defender or a midfielder or a right wing back or whatever other position in the squad, or a Tyler Dibbling or Mastan Tuono that we've been linked with. So rather than saying, okay, well, now we've got Champions League, instead of spending 30 on the striker, we're going to spend 50, they're going to be like, no, we still want to spend 30 on the striker, but that extra 20 we're going to put towards another player. Maybe they're looking at it that way and trying to get more players in, rather than trying to increase the quality of the one player or two players that we're kind of already linked with. I hope that makes sense. I've probably waffled on for way too long regarding that, but give us your thoughts in the comments. Now, on Matheus Cunha, Manchester United maintain optimism for Matheus Cunha deal as the club feels he really wants the move. Champions League football not expected to be a factor, with Cunha keen on the move, as Manchester United would be ready to pay the £62.5 million release clause in instalments if Wolves approve. So Fabrizio Romano saying optimism the deal's going to get done. Cunha wants the move. Champions League football, everything like that, not going to be an issue regarding Cunha. We can, if Wolves are happy, which the reports are they are, we can pay that kind of the release clause in installments, which massively helps us, which is maybe where we're getting the wiggle room to go and get Cunha and potentially Delap. When the transfer window opens, and get them done as soon as possible. David Ornstein said Matheus Cunha has made it clear to his agents he wants Manchester United. So, big indicator there as well regarding the Cunha deal. If David Ornstein's saying that his agents are saying that he wants Manchester United, we obviously want the player. There's a deal to be done. And if Wolves are happy to accept installments for the release clause, which is believed that they will be, this is it's getting close to this deal, isn't it? This is going to be one, I think, that's looking very, very positive at the moment, is what I would say. You can never say never in the transfer window, but, all roads are pointing towards Matheus Cunha at the moment. Now, in terms of other targets, so this was really interesting from David Ornstein, where he said that transfer targets will not change based on the European future. The club knows what they want. The finances are there for the priority positions in attack, so the 10 in the striker, and other positions could depend on sales. So David Ornstein saying that regardless of Champions League football, United know what targets they want to go for. And that's not going to change if they get European football. So that goes back to what I was saying before. So it looks like, reading between the lines in the reports, it was what I was saying earlier, that United they've got their targets. So instead of we were saying before, maybe transfer list A, whereas if you get Champions League, you can go for different types of. I just think they're going to get more players now. So if we get Champions League, instead of upgrading a transfer target to maybe somebody more expensive with higher salaries and stuff, they're just going to be like, no, we'd rather get more players in, and the more players we can get in, the quicker we can kind of do our rebuild. So maybe they're looking at it that way round now instead. According to David Ornstein, that's how I kind of interpreted that as well. I might be going totally off topic and going in the wrong direction, but the transfer targets will not change based on European future. So, regardless of whether we get Champions League or not, we're going to be going for the same players. It just might be that we can extend, the reports are we'll go for the goalkeeper news in a second, but at the minute it's believed we don't necessarily have the budget for a number one goalkeeper, or so we might be looking at like a younger profile. But then if we get Champions League, maybe we do go for a goalkeeper, or we do go for a centre half, or we do go for a right wing back, or whatever other kind of position that we need strengthened in. So that's really kind of interesting as well, to say that actually no, United, and I think that's a positive actually, that United know who they want. At least they made decisions. How many times do we go into a transfer window and it's like, well, we're not sure about this player or this player, and we're linked with like loads of different ones. And obviously we need to get those deals done. But it seems like they've drawn up a list of targets, and they're like, right, this is what we can afford. This is what we're kind of going for, and they're pushing ahead for those deals. And then, as I mentioned, if we get extra player sales, or if we get Champions League football, we're just going to go for more players rather than more expensive players, is probably the quicker way to explain it. David Ornstein also said that Antoine Semenyo and Tyler Dibbling are among the alternatives to Matheus Cunha. United are focusing on him, and things could move quickly. The player wants to come. So that's interesting to say that Semenyo and Dibbling are alternatives to Cunha. So does that mean if we get Cunha, then those two are off the table? Or is it the case that actually maybe we get Champions League, maybe we'll have the budget to go for Tyler Dibbling, so they get 3 forwards instead of 2, rather than 2, so that's going to be one to kind of keep an eye on. I'm not sure. But obviously Semenyo is a player we've been linked with. Tyler Dibbling is a player we've been linked with as well. So that's going to be one to keep an eye on. And then just on the David Ornstein interview, finally, regarding Onana, he said one thing they don't want to have to do is to replace Andre Onana if he can prove himself, because a new goalkeeper was not on the agenda, certainly not a number one. So let's see if he can turn his form around, stay at Old Trafford, and try to provide a bit of stability between the sticks. So David Ornstein saying that United were not necessarily planning to get a number one goalkeeper. Maybe that's why, with all the links with a cheaper, younger goalkeeper as an alternative, or as a number 2 to come in to compete with Onana, that's been the kind of talk of the town. and that they're hoping that he can turn his form around between the end of the season so we don't have to do that. And again, that maybe that's linked with the kind of budget and stuff, where we've got other priorities. Obviously, the attack is the main priority, what they're going for. They clearly want to improve the attack, which I agree with. Yeah, so they don't want to allocate too much budget towards the goalkeeper. But obviously, if we sell players or if we get a big deal for Onana, that might change as well. That's obviously just going off of what it is at the moment. So, but yeah, that'll be interesting to see what happens with the goalkeeper situation, because obviously it's believed that maybe Onana might have interest from the Saudi Pro League. Baena might want to go as well. So I do think we're going to need a goalkeeper. But it's just whether we're going to bring in somebody ready-made to be the number one, or a younger profile of player as a two to push Onana and potentially replace him there as well. So it's definitely one we need to keep an eye on. But give us your thoughts on that in the comments. Now, Manchester United have inquired about Villarreal's Álex Baena. Atletico Madrid are confident about signing him. And that came from... this journalist works for AS. AS are a big Spanish outlet, but he's also very connected with South America and bits as well, suggesting that maybe Manchester United are looking at Álex Baena, but we're saying that Atletico Madrid are confident about signing him, so that felt a little bit clickbaity to me, putting United's name in there, because he is he's a very talented player. Look at his kind of percentiles in terms of like attacking outlets, very, very impressive, being in the top 99 percentile for most of the attacking metrics, for most of the attacking percentiles, successful take-ons, touches, obviously defensively not the most impressive, but for an attacking player. But he's he's a right-footed left winger, primarily playing on the left wing, which is exactly where I think we're going to be playing Matheus Cunha, unless we're going to play Cunha as a striker possibly, and then get this lad in, then that could happen, but I can't see it personally. I think it was more clickbait report, especially when they're saying that Atletico Madrid are confident about signing him. So it just seems a bit of a random one, this one. But 28 appearances, 6 goals, 8 assists is a kind of, does look like an interesting option to bring in. But are we really looking for another right-footed left winger? We've got Garnacho, we've got Cunha. Obviously Garnacho, if we sell Garnacho, maybe a replacement for him, but that just seems daft in my opinion, to sell Garnacho just to bring someone in to replace him. Why not just keep Garnacho? That would make way more sense, but again, that might depend on the finances and whether Garnacho himself wants to leave. But yeah, keep an eye on it for you. Say take it with a pinch of salt for now though. Now, this was interesting, though. So James Ducker from The Telegraph, who's actually a good source, said that Manchester United are among a number of clubs monitoring the situation of Man City's James McAtee. Now, what do we think about that? Because James Ducker's not one to necessarily put like bullshit rumours and stuff out as well. Again, he's another kind of young winger stroke attacking midfielder. I think he's been playing attacking midfield or like as a right kind of 10 for City, decent kind of stats as well regarding that. 25 appearances, 7 goals, no assist this season. And, are we really going to buy a player from Manchester City? Is City really going to want to sell a player to Manchester United? I highly, highly doubt that. So again, it's one that I would say at the moment, take with a pinch of salt. But James Ducker is actually quite a reliable source of information as well. So this might be one to kind of keep an eye on. So maybe this is one of the third kind of attackers maybe they're looking for, that if we do get Champions League and we've got that extra budget, like as I mentioned, rather than spending that money on a upgraded player, they're just going to get another player in. Maybe he's one on the list, but yeah, it seems a little bit fishy, that one. But it's from a good place, so it's a weird one. Give us your thoughts though on that in the comments. I can't see us signing a player for Manchester City, especially a young kind of prospect player like that as well, that's still in contract. And, yeah, we'll need to keep an eye on it, but give us your thoughts in the comments. So Manchester United are in advanced talks with Enzo Kana-Biyik and his entourage. Several sources say the deal is imminent. So that came from Tanzolik, who's a good source regarding, remember, this is the kind of 18-year-old striker that's heavily linked with us. He is out of contracts, plays for Le Havre, which is ironically where we signed Pogba from many years ago. And then another French outlet has said that Enzo Kana-Biyik has agreed to a deal with Manchester United. He will be loaned for 1 season to Lausanne Sport and Ineos Club. So that's interesting. So United are maybe looking to get this lad in, sign him up on a contract, sell him to, or put him on loan to Lausanne Sport, which obviously is run by Ineos. We can't send him to Nice because we're in a transfer ban with Nice because of the whole European shenanigans in the Todibo move last summer, if you remember rightly. And then, I mean, maybe he would then move to Nice or come to United, who knows? But that's really a good idea as well. I like the idea of doing this, the kind of multi-club ownership where we can sign some young players, send them to either Nice or to Lausanne, and then they can kind of develop there and actually play football, because there is value for getting minutes in. And then obviously we don't want to hold all the players in our 21s and 23s because some of it might stump some players' development as well. So that's actually quite a good move, actually, I think. And then another kind of French outlet has said exactly the same thing as well, that Enzo Kana-Biyik has agreed to a deal with Manchester United. He will be loaned to Ineos-owned Lausanne next season. So that's a really interesting kind of one. And I like the idea of doing that as well. Again, not a player that I've heard a lot of, highly regarded 18-year-old kind of striker, and that's about my knowledge on that one. So give us your thoughts on the comments below. Now let's quickly go through some exit news. So the probable 92.5 million cost of Cunha and Delap would be offset by the planned sales of Marcus Rashford, Jadon Sancho and Antony, all currently on loan. Now regarding Antony, Samuel Lucker said that Antony's value has risen amid his fine form. United would require 32.52 million to sell him this summer. So, you know, we're looking for around the £30 million mark for Antony for a permanent exit. Regarding Sancho, The Athletic said Chelsea's obligation to buy Jadon Sancho for Manchester United for £25 million has been triggered, but that does not guarantee a move to Stamford Bridge. So because Chelsea are now officially, I think it's 14th, they had to finish 14th and above for the kind of obligation to buy to kind of kick in, they're mathematically now in that position where they're not going to finish less than 14th, not like us. So that kind of obligation is kind of kicked in, but there's still no reports whether they're going to do it or whether they're going to pay the £5 million kind of fee to kind of cancel the obligation to buy as well. But surely a decision would need to be made fairly soon on that one. So we'll keep an eye on it and bring you any updates when they come out. And then regarding Rashford, Samuel Lucker said that Marcus Rashford will wait until the summer to make a decision on his future. Rashford wants to join a Champions League club and has no interest in a move to London. Sky was saying that Marcus Rashford is not ruling out any options over his future at the moment, including staying at Manchester United. Simon Stone said Marcus Rashford feels it is unlikely he will play for Manchester United again under Ruben Amorim. And Chris Wheeler has said that Marcus Rashford's representatives will not discuss his future until mid-June at the earliest, and have ruled out a swap deal with another player due to the complexity of such a move. There was reports the other day of a swap with Rashford and Ollie Watkins, which now, if we're not getting Osimhen, that would be a pretty decent. You know, I wouldn't be necessarily dead against doing something like that, but Chris Wheeler saying no kind of swap deal regarding Rashford. So a little bit of mixed news regarding Rashford. The annoying one for me is saying he's not going to decide his future until mid-June. You know, so this one might be one that kind of drags on. I still feel with Rashford, he's waiting for Barcelona or PSG or someone like that. And then if they don't come in for him, then maybe he'll look at stay at Villa and stuff. But give us your thoughts on that in the comments. And then Alex Crook has said that Manchester United are ready to cash in on Alejandro Garnacho to help fund their summer rebuild. But Alex Crook, I would say, take with a pinch of salt. But there's, you know, we know the kind of stories regarding Garnacho. We know there's interest from Napoli potentially. And potentially could be a player that we look to kind of sell in the summer, but we'll keep an eye on it for you. I'll bring you any updates if they come out. Let me know what you think in the comments. Let me know what you think about all the other topics discussed in today's video, because that's you all up to date with the latest Manchester United news and transfer news. Smash a like on the video on your way out. Subscribe to the channel if you're new. See you in the next one.